This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Joining us today is Jason Brewer, the CEO of Marula Mining. Hello, Jason. Thank you very much for your time. How are you doing?
I'm well, Mark. It's good times here for sure.
Indeed. Well, of course, you've had three pieces of news recently. We're going to go through all of them. The first one I want to touch on is, of course, that $5 million lithium prepayment that you've secured to fund the Blesberg lithium into production. You've received the first $2.5 million from your mining and processing contractors, Southern Mineral Processing. Now, as I understand, this takes you to 100% ownership of the project, and the production of the first 1,000 tons of high-grade lithium ore is expected to occur in early 2023, with first sales expected 14th of January 23. And S&P has successfully completed the mineral and recovery trials. And to quote you, you said to be close to being a new lithium producer soon after refocusing the company's strategy, and to achieve this through a structured and non-dilutive financing against future lithium production is a major win and reward for shareholders. So give us your reaction to this. This is pretty significant, Jason, yeah?
It is. I think you summed it up pretty well. All my quotes kind of summed it up pretty well there. It is. Look, this is an asset we've only really had since we approved it in July. So we've barely had it 4 or 5 months. And we've been able to secure this funding upfront. So it's not an offtake agreement. They're actually paying advancing funds against a future delivery. And we're able to use those funds here, like you say, to move to 100% of Blesberg, which is very important for us, given the sort of returns and cash flow we're expecting from this asset going forward. But it also fully funds it into production. So, for a company of our size to secure this funding, which is multiple times the market value of the company, is a great reward for shareholders. I mean, we couldn't have gone out and raised this in the equity markets. We just couldn't. So it's a great sign of support, of validation to the project, that somebody, a global commodity house, is willing to advance this funding to us to allow us to bring it into production. So to say I'm pleased, I'm chuffed, is an understatement. It's been a lot of hard work by the office here in Nairobi, but also by the guys in South Africa. So that work's been done in a very, very short period of time as well. And we've delivered, which is critical for us.
Yeah, I was going to mention, you said there about validation. If anything, the market or shareholders needed validation that this project is viable. Well, of course, we've got your word for it, but here we have some actual, punting up some real cash. So clearly, if these guys are happy, they're happy with what they're seeing.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I can sing from the highest mountain about how great a project is and how, as a management team, we can deliver. But for shareholders, investors, for the market as a whole, it's always good to see, a third-party group, and a third-party group which is a commodities player, a major commodities player. They don't get involved in projects which they're not confident they'll get product from. So, and they're not taking an option over us. This isn't one of those, I've seen so many companies put out announcements about non-binding MOUs, heads of terms over future offtake. No. This is where they've actually put in money now upfront, actually before shareholders. Let's be honest here. They've put money in now before shareholders to get this developed. So It is that verification, independent verification, and from an experienced, billion-dollar company. So it kind of, it makes us as a board happy in our decision to proceed with this and secure it so early on in the kind of the rebranding, the refocusing of the company.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to following the developments there as we go into the new year and into that all-important production. But that seems like, it certainly looks like very good progress there, Jason. So let's talk about some of the other news then. Of course, this expanded investment strategy, which you say is to allow the directors the authority to acquire the majority interests of the entire issued and to be issued share capital into the company's investments, projects and entities. And you say currently you cannot acquire majority stakes in projects and therefore limited in operating abilities, impacting the value that you can deliver to shareholders. So can you just explain this a little more, just put a bit more colour around this particular move?
Sure. All Star Minerals, as it was called before myself getting involved earlier this year, is classified as an investment company. So as part of that classification, and when it listed several years ago, it was constrained in what it could do. It could make investments in the mining sector, but it could not have controlling interests. It could not have, as a management team, control or direction over the projects or companies that it invested in. So it was very much, call it a passive investor. With myself coming on board and with the company's, I guess, new strategy, new direction, it's important for us to be able to manage these investments in these projects more proactively. We're not going to sit back and sit there in a minority position and not have any real say in how these projects are developed or not. So something like Blesberg, we were sitting there with, just prior, a 5% shareholding with an option to go to 30% and then to go up to 70%, subject to getting a change in our investment strategy. We've now accelerated Blesberg because, like I say, we believe the returns are there, particularly in the lithium market as it stands. Lithium prices at all-time highs. So look, we needed to get shareholders to approve this change in investment strategy from being passive minority holders in these projects and companies to us now being more operators, I guess. Being a true mining company. Actually having these projects, putting in place the executive management, managing the budgets, the expenditures, and the directions and the strategies of those underlying projects. So I believe now we have the management team in place to do that. The management team will be strengthened. Don't get me wrong. We will grow. We will expand as a management team. But I think, if we didn't do this, we would be, we wouldn't be doing our shareholders service. We wouldn't be able to give them the sort of returns that we can see. So, opportunistically now we've been able to go to 100% in Blesberg. And I think as the first one, that will be a great opportunity, a great thing for our shareholders. So we need this. We really need this to be able to realize the strategy, the goals, the objectives, which me as a CEO have put forward to the rest of the board.
Okay, well, you've explained that very well, and I do think it is important to make that shift because there is always that kind of barrier, if you like, being an investment company as opposed to an operator. They just don't tend to get the excitement or the recognition. There's like a passive investment still can deliver returns, but there's nothing quite like being the operator owner as well and be able to follow that story in detail. Is this a done deal then, or is there some hurdles you've got to go through to get this completed?
Look, with that, we need shareholder approval. So it's one of the resolutions which we put up at the annual general meeting, which has been held on the 18th of November. We anticipate, obviously, that shareholders will support that. And I'd encourage shareholders to support that because it is the next step for us, the next obvious step for us as a company. So, yeah, that's the only real hurdle. But I'd like to think that it's one of those hurdles we just step over very quickly. But rest assured, the shareholders that will vote on that resolution, they've now got a company that can deliver on that. You've now got experienced directors. You've also got a management team that's being built on the ground, be it in Zambia, be it in Tanzania, on the ground in South Africa, that can deliver those projects into production and start generating positive operating cash flow and profits, which hopefully at some stage we'll be able to return to our shareholders.
Excellent. Good. Well, let's finish talking about money then, because that is important to obviously advance these projects, particularly as well in these markets where people tend to be not spending as much. It's maybe slightly tougher to raise money, but you have indeed raised 450,000 plus another 265 through CLN, so a total of 715,000 there. The CLN is capped at a fixed price of 2p. in 10,000 increments. So that helps, I think, there to mitigate any damage, let's say, to the share price or dilution. You've also mentioned that you're in advanced discussions with 2 African-focused mining investment funds on further investments of up to 1 million, which you hope to finalise within the next 3 weeks. So, I mean, a lot of money available to the company here, Jason. First of all, how are you feeling about that? And how have you managed to get that kind of interest of capital?
Look, it's very pleasing, and I'd like to thank the shareholders, the new investors that have supported us in this. And that convertible note is basically from an existing shareholder as well. So we've managed to work very closely with our current shareholder base and with new investors to basically, advise them, update them, and get them aligned with our strategy. So it hasn't come easy, don't get me wrong, particularly in these markets, but it comes from persistence, but it comes from a very clear and defined strategy, and one which we're already delivering on in a short period of time. So I think that's something they're very impressed with. And our commodity focus, those battery metals. So to be able to secure the 450 in a placing in this current market, and given the listing that we have on the Aquis Exchange, I think is a great result. And like I say, very appreciative of everybody that's supporting us. And it was a challenge, but no, I think those shareholders will be duly rewarded for that. The con note, like I say, it's not one of those ones where with a variable exercise price. It's fixed. Basically, he's come in at the same level as the placing. Simple as that. Because it's one individual putting, or one investment group putting in that, they wanted to put in that converting note structure, which I've got no issue with. I'm quite happy with raising funds on both the equity and debt side of the balance sheet. But to bring in over almost, £750,000 at this stage of our development as a company, I think is a great result. The company has never been in such a strong financial position. This is in addition to the 5 million US that we've received, or we are receiving from Traxys. So yeah, we're in a very good position there. And obviously I'm busy banging my head against the door with 2 other groups that are looking at up to $1 million US. The first one is getting back to us, I think, on the 7th of November. Not I think, I know, of the 7th of November. And that week as well, we have a final site visit by one of the other funds. So I'm confident that we're going to be bringing in some additional funding on that, and strategic funding that's regional, coming out of Southern Africa, that knows mining, that knows these assets and wants to grow with us. So, we're not just taking money for the sake of taking money. Each time we're looking at securing additional investment, it's on the basis that it's going to help us get to the next level, help us secure the next project, help us to advance some of the other projects. So this funding is not for Blesberg. Blesberg's already funded, so we're quite happy with that. This funding allows us to move ahead with Kanusi, the very high-grade copper, which we've got up in Tanzania. Also, Nkombwa Hill, the rare earths, already has that JORC compliant rare earths project. And also some other projects which we're pretty much quite far down the track with as well. So very timely to secure this, and much needed if we're going to deliver on the sort of targets that I've set ourselves here.
Excellent. Well, it's certainly a very strong position to be in. You've got big ambitions, it sounds like, Jason. So thank you very much for talking to us today. And sure, we'll be speaking again fairly soon as developments happen, both at Blesberg and, of course, on the other projects, given the firepower that the company now has behind it. But thank you very much, Jason Brewer, the CEO of Marula Mining.
Mark, always a pleasure, and thank you.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.